Welcome everyone to the fourth installment of the New Agents Trend series, a series of online conversations hosted by Phocuswright exploring the impact of generative AI, autonomous agents, and digital ID on the travel industry. In part 4 today, we're focused on the impact on travel marketing. I'm Mike Coletta, Senior Manager of Research and Innovation at Phocuswright, and I'll be joined by our three panelists who I'll introduce in a few minutes. First, the quick background on these online events. We're holding 5 of them this year, every month or two into the fall, and they align with the 5 topics in our Travel Innovation and Technology Trends 2025 report, which published in early February and is available for free on our website. And you can catch the replays of all the sessions on YouTube. Now, before I introduce our panelists, I want to take a few minutes to set the stage and provide some context for today's discussion. And I want to start by saying that marketing's such a broad topic. Today, we could talk about SEO, paid search, email, display, video, written content, social media, attribution, offline versus online, business models, automation, etc. And I think we should try to touch on as many topics as we can. But to me, the elephant in the room is search, because that's where most people historically have started their trips. You could argue that now it's social media for younger generations. But on search, we have to note how AI overviews on Google for many travel queries are now taking up pretty much the entire search results page. So this is an example for create an itinerary for Costa Rica with a focus on nature. And there's everything from photos to expandable itinerary sections to hotel links and an embedded map. So the days of 10 blue links driving a lot of direct traffic to websites are likely over. There are a few organic links at the top right, but for the most part, people get a lot of the answers they're looking for and don't click. And to prove it, here are some stats provided by Brennan at Perplexity, who is a panelist today. This is from a study by Seer Interactive showing a 70% drop in click-through rate when AI overview is present. So, I think we have to keep in mind that travel's projected to grow a lot, right, in our own projections, and people will still need to buy somewhere. So one of my biggest questions for the panelists today will be, how will the purchase path be changing going forward? Also related, another slide from Brennan showing that in their client portfolio, conversion rates from AI traffic are 4 times higher than traditional organic traffic. And it makes sense that getting answers up front would result in less traffic, but also better qualified traffic that does come through with higher purchase intent. So that's some good news. Then there's Google's AI mode, which is started to roll out aggressively in the US as of May. And it enables nearly every search query to become a two-way conversation like you get in ChatGPT or Gemini, powered by Google's latest AI models, which are getting really good. And a lot of people think that this could replace the classic search experience altogether in the long term or even the medium term. So that's the first screenshot. And then the screenshot on the right is from my own Gemini account, showing that when I used the deep research tool for a pretty straightforward beach vacation inquiry, it went out and searched 917 websites for me. So the quick point I want to make here is that this kind of deep research that no human could really ever do will likely make its way into AI mode eventually, so that you have a really powerful and oftentimes personalized conversational search experience by default. And this has already started. AI mode already searches a lot of sites using a fan-out technique, query fan-out technique it's called. But basically what we're moving toward is AI agents that can do superhuman research and converse naturally with you and then take action like booking your trip. And that will likely become the default interface that practically all Google users wind up using. And indeed, a lot of products will probably go in this direction. And I like this quote by Visa's CMO on LinkedIn a couple of months ago, where he put it as clearly as can be. He said, digital assistants will serve as intermediaries between brands and consumers, and increasingly from agent to agent. Marketing is rapidly evolving from B2B or B2C to B2AI. So, this is all to set the stage that we're talking about major disruption here. And there are huge questions about how paid ads and organic links will evolve in these agentic experiences and how marketing will evolve in general, especially if AI agents will be doing a lot of the shopping on behalf of people, and they'll be less affected by emotional type messaging. And how it all plays out matters a lot because there's a lot of money in play here. right? 17.8 billion spent on marketing in 2024 by just the top 5 OTAs alone. And for a bit more context, I have a couple of Phocuswright data points from recent surveys we've done. First, here we see that across the US, UK, France, and Germany, general search engines are still the top used online resource for researching and selecting trip components, far ahead of standalone generative AI platforms like ChatGPT or Gemini, which are being used by only about a tenth of travelers. But then within those general search results, 22% of travelers believe they have utilized AI-generated search results. So approaching a quarter already. It's lower in the European countries, but AI features have been slower to roll out there, partly due to regulation. And we just expect, all this to grow very rapidly in the coming quarters. Another data point is that travelers are very happy with AI results. We see around an 80, even 90% satisfaction rate across the board with all travel use cases, or almost all. So that indicates they will continue to embrace AI for travel. And before we get to our panelists, I just thought this stat was worth sharing quickly. There's a lot of good information in this report from the Marketing AI Institute. And their number one takeaway was that 53% of marketers believe AI will eliminate more marketing jobs than it creates, yet 68% still have no formal AI training from their employers. So seems we're at an important inflection point where marketers really need to start building their skills and understanding of the next era, at least partly on their own. And hopefully this webinar will help a bit in that journey. So that brings us to our panelists for today. I'm really thrilled to have with us a few of the people who are truly on the cutting edge of travel marketing. And as usual, we've tried to represent perspectives from suppliers, intermediaries, and independent experts. So we have Brennan Bliss, CEO of Perplexity, which is a top digital marketing agency in the travel and tourism space. Michael Goldrich, who's president of the Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association International, or HSMAI NYC chapter, which many of you likely know, helps hotels grow their businesses. And he's also the founder of Vivander Advisors, where he helps companies with AI literacy. And John Leotier, co-founder and CEO of Travel AI, which runs a large network of niche websites in the travel space and is building an AI layer for the agentic era. And one more thing about John, who I actually met 20 years ago when we were both working in the domaining space. I wanted to share this chart that he posted on LinkedIn recently showing referrals to Travel AI's top 20 brands, because it shows that while search engine click-through rates may be falling, there is this offsetting force of ChatGPT in particular sending more traffic and growing fast. And the post text is hard to read here, but he notes that the traffic is performing really well. So we'll get to that in a moment. So John, starting with you, to follow on that last chart I shared, it'd be great if you can kick things off by talking first about what Travel AI is and does, which I think is quite unique in the industry, and then the implications from that chart, and specifically, for the coming year. Let's save the 5-year plus predictions for the end of the conversation, but short term, realistically, right now, how fast ChatGPT is growing, everything changing with Google that I talked about. And like I said, I think is the biggest question, how do you see the purchase path changing, just even in the short term?
Sure. Well, let's start with the first question, and one is good to be here. Nice chatting again after many years. I think one of the biggest things that chart was sort of an indication of what we're doing at Travel AI. We talk about the top 20 brands. We operate more than 400 consumer-facing brands. There's lots out there. Many of the audience here would likely have been to some of our brands. They just don't know it. We operate brands a lot in the short-term rental space. We really come out of the short-term rental market, where most of these brands form a bit of a bridge and function as a level of meta to help the travelers discover both places to go as well as properties to embrace and to hopefully eventually book and stay at. We have really tried to embrace AI as a core part of our business, that we are travelai.com, really trying to use and apply AI in ways to make the travel process more efficient. lots of experimentation. We really are marketing technologists and technology marketers that, yes, we've finished sometimes have to talk to people, but really we like just talking to the data and masquerading as a travel company on the top layer. Uh, the biggest thing I think from that chart and really what it's indicating is that ChatGPT as a traffic source can't be. It's real. It's here. It's a substantial amount of traffic across our network now, and it's growing rapidly. From when they pushed out that chart, just over a month ago, we've probably gone 3x since then. So that growth line that you're seeing is still continuing upward. Occasionally, there's a weird little blip where you may lose a day of traffic, and I'm not really sure what's happening. I'm thinking that there's probably a lot of experimentation going on by the platforms themselves and the user experience. That's still more sort of some of the hunching. But yeah, we're out trying to grow and see what's happening in the space and trying to embrace this new traffic channel as it emerges.
And on the next year, I don't know. Just, I mean, a lot of, I guess anything we can say is speculation, but any specific predictions for, even where things will be at in a year?
I think the biggest thing that you can know is that it's going to change even further. The one thing that is certain is change. Uh, Going back into our time in the domaining space, Mike, way back when, if you look at what seems to be happening with a lot of the user experience from whether it's in Google's AI mode, whether it's in ChatGPT interface, I think what we're seeing quickly is a lot of rapid progression through the growth in search that we saw that took maybe 12, 15 years we'll call it from 2000 through 2015, that rapid progression on Google into universal search where you start getting your embedded images, you get your hotel feeds, you get your shopping feeds, you get your knowledge boxes. You're starting to see all of that go through into ChatGPT and into the platforms. So I think what we're going to see is a massive change in the user experience. I don't know where it's going to go, but it's not going to look like what the product that we're using today.
Yeah. And Brennan, following on your slides about click-through rates and conversions, can you expand a little on your interpretation of those stats and then talk through your thoughts on the purchase path evolution for the next year? Year.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think that from a very high level, the best answer I can give you is nobody really knows right now what the purchase path will look like in a year. Uh, I have an expectation that there will be a transition of the primary surface people use to research and plan and book travel, which is right now the Google search experience. Whether that lands with Google or whether that lands with another chatbot is to be determined by the market over time. It looks like Google's making some pretty significant pivots to maintain their market share right now. A couple things that we're noticing, and these are anecdotal studies that I'm citing, so I will do my best to bring the numbers with me to the level of accuracy I can recall. But I've seen evidence that clickouts from something like AI mode or ChatGPT are substantially fewer for an individual search, but in an entire session are very similar in nature. So if you're looking at the way someone goes to Google search and clicks on blue links, they might click one link on their first search, whereas in a AI mode, they might not click anything, but eventually they are going to book one way or another. That is the end goal, albeit in the future, it'll possibly and very likely be done by potentially an agent like Google's Project Mariner or a operator in ChatGPT. So the changes are happening. Mike, you and I have spoken about it. Propellic's doing some research and Phocuswright's involved in some of that on how people are researching, planning, and booking travel with AI services that'll be published probably in about August or September. But for now, I know what everybody else knows. I just think about it a little bit more often.
That's a good explanation. More sessions, right? Fewer clicks per session, but a lot longer conversations, a lot more queries, a lot more longer sessions that then result in those clicks, eventually flowing through.
It's moving from a single turn to a multi-turn experience in Google right now, which is, again, I cite Google because it's by and far, even today, we talk about how substantially ChatGPT is driving traffic and driving visibility. It's tiny compared to what Google does. I think one of the most fun anecdotes that I've heard recently is we talk about how large ChatGPT is as an organization. It's very large, but their revenue is a third of the revenue generated by Apple AirPods. So it still is not, it's still is growing. There's lots of room for growth.
Absolutely, yeah. And Michael, your vision for the next year in general is fine, but it would be great to hear your perspective for suppliers in particular.
Yeah, so I think it's for the suppliers, I think it's for the hotel marketers trying to wrap their head around everything that's changing. So I do a lot of training of hotel teams, educating them about AI and AI adoption and implementation. And for them, they're still sort of really, I'm always surprised that a number of them are still at the bare basics of trying to figure out how to write a prompt. So for them to look at these metrics that are coming in, which I heard the term, they call them an alligator graph. So like the alligator graph is like this, where the impressions are now going up, but the clicks are now going down. And so understanding how to embrace that. And for the hotel marketers, they need to kind of evolve their skill set. So that's one of the things that, from the hotel perspective, that people need to change. So the web isn't dead. Like a lot of people keep saying the web is dead, but the web is now, as it is a foundation. And what the hotel marketers need to know is what do they need to do to understand that it's no longer to be the top ranked result. It actually, you want to be the new number one page result is now showing up in the engine. How do you position yourself to be that share of voice? So that's one of the things that's going to be happening this year, I believe, into next, is for hotel marketers to understand how to get seen, how to make sure that their hotels are not invisible, and to actually appear in the results and learning all the things that they need to do to be the answer, whether it is in the answer result in terms of the chatbot, whether it's being spoken to via Alexa or whatever. And I think next year, I think right now people are comfortable. People are comfortable with the chatbot kind of taking them all the way almost straight to the booking. And the data seems to suggest that they trust the recommendations that the chatbot gives them. However, it's the last point, the booking, the putting it in the person, the private information that is the sticking point. But I think once people get beyond that, and I think as the guest journey changes, and people are comfortable with the AI doing the whole booking for them, and then actually they see the human traffic just drop substantially more, then I think that it's going to really look at how to measure that, and I think that's going to be the question.
Yeah. So one thing I heard was the mindset shift that's needed, right? Starting now, if not previous, already. I did SEO and PPC for years, so I think I get how marketers are generally trained to think in terms of keywords and conversions. But the way you measure traffic now and what that traffic means and how you ultimately get people to conversion is going to be so different. So it's kind of mindset shift, and then understanding, the new signals that are important. So without getting too far into the weeds, let's talk about that a little bit. Signals that are most important for AI search. Also would be a good place to start getting into the role of social media and video. It seems, one place that AI optimization differs from SEO is that inbound links aren't nearly as important as brand mentions. Maybe this is changing. You guys would know better than me following it more closely. But a couple other things. I've seen research saying that Reddit is or was really important for surfacing content in AI. I've seen other research saying it isn't, or it was, but it isn't anymore. There's the news of Instagram, allowing public posts from professional accounts to be indexed by Google. Seems like YouTube's just as important as ever. AI can understand transcripts and even visuals, so videos can provide important signals. So again, lots rapidly changing here. So if each of you could just share your quick perspective on the importance of, say, the top signals for AI visibility, and anyone could jump in.
Couple things. I think it's important, without getting too into the weeds, to differentiate the two things that we're optimizing for. So there's the large language models themselves, and that's, when they get trained on the corpus of data on the internet and other places. And then there's when the large language model says, I'm going to go search for that and get the information for you, which is a very different mode. It's retrieval. So on that latter one, it's actually using search algorithms. So frankly, it's very, very similar to the SEO work that we do today, where technical and content strategy and importantly, as you called out, links and authority metrics are still primary drivers, particularly when you're looking at platforms like Google. Whereas on the other side of things, which is really the frontier of what we're still working to research and discover and understand, is how to optimize for the large language model itself. Just as you said, Mike, it's branded mentions and then the sentiment of those mentions. So one of the things that we look at that's starting to formulate as potential likely influence is this concept of something called co-occurrence. How frequently does your topic that you're trying to show up next to your brand name on the internet? And how frequently does that happen in comparison to your competitors? And how frequently does your list of topics, let's say you're an OTA that has hotels, flights, car rental, well, which one do you show up most frequently next to on external sites on the internet? It's much more likely that you'll be cited for that one than the ones you show up less frequently next to. So the big driver, we say about 70% of things are fairly similar to what we do on the SEO side. But what you're talking about there, Mike, when you talk about branded mentions, that is a significant difference when you're trying to optimize for a large language model.
Mm-hmm.
Let me build off of that, Brennan. One of the conversations we were having here the other day is about how the more things change, the more things stay the same. And building off what Michael was saying about the emotional messaging, in a way, what you're having to do now is not that dissimilar to marketing back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, the Don Draper style of marketing, where you have to seed your customer with emotional messaging. Your customer just happens to be the LLM or the agent who's embracing those signals. So if you're trying to plant the seed that you need this certain detergent to clean your house in a certain way, or whatever the product would be from the mass market standpoint, that's what's happening today. You're still having to seed the market. You still have to seed the LLM with those positive mentions, and when sometimes it's the repetition, you must hear a marketing message 7 times before it's effective. Well, it probably holds true for the LLMs as well. They need to see your same message multiple times in different formats to really cement what they're looking for. Just the audience now is no longer the person; it's the agent who's embracing it on behalf of the person, the future person, because not even that person is embracing it at that moment in time. I think from some of those other top signals, we actually got pretty fortunate, almost probably one would even say lucky, in some of the dimensions that we're having. We had a series of sites that, for the lack of a better word, are really bad sites. They were just formulaic SEO sites that repeated the same thing over and over again and say, yeah, we'll deal with the duplicate content later. We'll fix things in post-production. But that duplicate content we had across the site repeated the message over and over and over again across a few of the brands. And I think that gave some positive signal to the machine 6 months ago that the same text that was used to highlight a certain property, a certain location, cemented in the machine that this is a positive mention because we just happen to repeat ourselves. But I think those types of signals to the engine that here's your marketing message 7 times does land with the machine just as well as did with the human. Theory, once again, we're all just experimenting right here and seeing what truly will stick, but that's just a theory we have at this time.
And to build on what they just said, is if you think about the mantra, don't make the AI think. So what you want to do is the AI is all optimized on this concept of tokens, and you make it as easy as possible for the AI to come up to the answer to use as few tokens as possible. And that is a way. So if the message, in terms of what John and Brendan were just talking about, it's about consistency. If you think about how marketing used to be, you would do the inbound links as you're talking about, and that's how you got your authority. But now you want to have all the consistent brand mentions. So if you think of it like a hub and spoke, everything that you own is the hub, and then everyone talking about you is the spokes. And then above that, looking down, is like the AI just measuring it and collecting it, and then just saying, okay, what is it? What are people saying about this brand? And that's how it kind of aggregates it and puts it together and then files it away. So I think that is another way to kind of think about it, as a way to just to reiterate what they were saying, is just keep the brand mentioning consistent, but also keep it short and bite-sized as well.
Great. And then how about on social? specifically? Because I think search is still the most important channel, but social's arguably a close second. A lot of people really just start their search there, start with visuals. And AI, I think, will be continually integrated into social media. So it seems like Meta's in a good position, TikTok, Google with YouTube.
I think the biggest news of the week was Google and Instagram, or Google admitting that you're going to start indexing and showing Instagram results in their social. We've had very little success getting social to convert. Is the honest answer. It's more of you get a click, yeah, it doesn't convert. I think as you start to look at the role of social, it's typically earlier in the funnel anyways. So a lot of people who are engaging with social, they're not looking to book. Although I guess if you look at the data, people are searching for TikTok now. If you're of the younger generation, I'm not. But I think the role of social is much like anything else. You have to plant those seeds, that level of inception early on with consumers, so that when they think of you, they think of you positively. I think that's the biggest thing we're going to see from social, and eventually that will move down the funnel to when that they are ready to make those buying decisions. They already have your positive association either with the brand, or at least the model thinks you have a positive association with the brand. And that's sort of a bit of a how do you get the model to think in that way in the very first place?
Other thoughts on social? Or we could move on?
Yeah, no, I think another way to look at it is almost like an investment portfolio, how you want to always be diversified to make sure that you reduce your risk. The same thing on social. While you want to have influencers talking about you, but you want regular people talking about you as well, and you want companies talking about you. So you need a broad swath of people talking about you for all that to kind of be assimilated and create a good picture of your brand and your company.
Any specific takes on Reddit, which I mentioned seems to have some mixed signals in terms of its importance, and TripAdvisor, where a lot of the signals do come from, their importance going forward?
I saw a study the other day that said 95% of ChatGPT citations are from the last 10 months or something like that, or they're deemed to be recent. And I think a lot of those earlier conversations that could occur in real time do occur in is your recent reviews of TripAdvisor or your recent commentary on Reddit. But I don't know if that's going to, it's more signal. I don't know how disparate these platforms look at one site versus the other. Brendan, more of a question for you, I guess, is from traditional ranking for SEO, the signals that you used to get from an SEO perspective from a Reddit or from your mentions or your in-link URLs for socials, do they have much weight in passing link authority to the brand?
So no in link authority. So we for those not familiar with Propelix methodology, when we're looking at organic search, we're actually running statistical analysis on the ranking pages there so we can understand what of over 1,000 factors are influencing visibility. I've never seen a social link have a strong statistical correlation, and even correlation is the word. I'm not using causation. I'm saying cannot recall seeing a strong statistical correlation with a Reddit reference or a direct link on Twitter or X or Meta properties correlate with ranking. And the key reason for that John is pointing out is there's these tags that are used to discredit the value of that link called a nofollow tag. And that tells the search engine, don't follow this. Now, when you're looking at a large language model, very different. When they're looking at the internet, they're scraping, and then they're very likely, John and I had this conversation with a couple people on each of our team last week or 2 weeks ago, where we assume that they're actually they're basically sanitizing the HTML. They're taking out all links and processing just the text. And there's no reason for a large language model to look at links because it can't recall that when it builds its vector database. So the idea is a mention in and of itself, whether or not it's linked, possibly if it's not linked, it's better, is going to be more valuable in large language models than any sort of link would be.
Yeah, wow. Again, just a big mindset shift required.
And I also realized that I don't know that there's been people asking questions in chat, and I wrote responses, and I think I've only sent those to the panelists. So sorry for everybody that
okay.
was responding.
We'll go through those.
That was not responding to.
Yeah, no worries. Next, let's talk about business models, how they might evolve and affect advertising. So something interesting I saw was Sam Altman talking a few months ago, about how affiliate partnerships, he views as better than ads. He just doesn't like ads. Um, so
It's
if
not what
compens
he also said he kind of likes Instagram ads. That was a follow up about 2 weeks back. He says, those ads you see on Instagram, they're kind of cool.
Yeah,
Paraphrasing, but
does change his mind. But I think there's the potential for compensation structure to change, right? In some of the big influential platforms, or even if consumers are willing to pay up front, for their AI assistants that become more and more trusted and valued, and the value is clear of them being unbiased, right?
Yeah.
If I'm paying for something, and so it's not as biased by ads. Um, what's the kind of likelihood and the ripple effects of that? But then also, if anyone can comment on the current state of ads shown in the AI platform, because I haven't been tracking that as closely, but I know it's happening.
I apologize for going twice in a row. I do have something. It's funny because this is actually a headline on LinkedIn today that there's a partnership between Shopify and OpenAI being worked out that is assumed to have some sort of variable or commission-based compensation component. John and Mike, you were both citing a reference from Sam Altman where he essentially said that he'd rather have a commission model on the internet versus having an ad model. Whereas Google's going the exact opposite way. They just released something called AI Max for search ads, where you can essentially run search ads that appear in AI services, among other things. And for the first week, they were doing exceptionally well, and that's not been the case since. But I have one opinion on intermediaries, and then I will stop talking. The intermediary piece of travel, I think there's a large conversation, and I wrote about this in our biweekly newsletter on Tuesday, that there is a very likely disruption to intermediaries in travel. I think it's possible. I don't think it's likely. And the reason for that is when you look at a AI model that's comparing hotels in a destination, there could be 700 hotels in that destination easily, depending on where it is. And for it to have pricing data on all 700 locations, that would take enormous amounts of computing power and scraping and time to get those prices to compare them for the user to give the user the best recommendation. Whereas OTAs have spent the past 20 years developing that inventory, developing those connections. So I think it's much more likely, Mike, that they have a business model that's a portion of the OTA's commission goes to the chatbots and OpenAI and Anthropic for giving them access to the inventory and bookability, because it would be so much more complex, unnecessarily complex to use agents to execute all those things that have already been very masterfully configured and set up by OTAs.
Yeah, it's tempting to go down that road. Starts to get to the edges of marketing discussion, but we could talk about GDSs and meta search and new platforms, which I do want to get to that. But yeah,
I
others.
think if you actually go back or up a layer, I've always been a fan of outcome-based pricing. Outcome-based pricing, affiliate marketing, call it alignment of interests is a better way to phrase it. Most marketing does not have an alignment of interest. If you're just putting an ad in a brochure, a billboard, a TV spot, you don't have an alignment that all the players in that deal, the advertiser, the publishing medium, the consumer, they don't have that same alignment of interest. I think if you look at most marketplaces, and whether it's an Airbnb or a Booking or a Vrbo or a restaurant or a old-fashioned bazaar, you had this almost implied agreement that the sellers in the marketplace and the buyers in the marketplace both had the same shared desire and shared outcome that they wanted. They wanted to do a transaction. The person who's selling wants to get the highest price possible. The person who's buying wants to get the lowest price possible, and somewhere in the middle is that equilibrium. I think what you get when you have AI agents in the mix or an alignment of interest with those AI agents is that you can program those agents to have the same desired outcome as those market participants, which is we want to help facilitate a transaction. So if you're facilitating the transaction, why don't you want to share in the outcome? You're programmatically setting the goal to be the exact same as what market participants wants. You got to share in the goal. Then that way everybody's aligned to the same objective, as opposed to in a way the old-fashioned marketplace. Call the Facebook of the world, if you will, which I don't care if they book as long as they click on my ad. That's the wrong model. So I think if you look at the outcome-based pricing, Google's T-ROAS bids, if people you're familiar with targeted ROAS, or basically performance side, where I'll spend $1 as long as I'm making $1.50. that works as long as you can sort of align those interests in both parties. That works. So I think that's where it's going to go.
Yeah,
Whether who's providing it is the question.
right. And what Brennan said about the whole Shopify. So I was reading about that this morning, and I was thinking about this before we joined the call. And if these AIs are all based on trust and guest, customers or on the guest journey, trusting that they are getting personalized responses and feedback that answers exactly what they want. Now, if, say, OpenAI is getting a piece of the action in terms of what they recommend, then there is I'm not necessarily getting exactly what I want. I'm getting for what someone is paying for me to see, potentially in the answers. So I think that the maybe contextually on the side or something like that, if they can kind of do the ad or something on the side. But I think if the results are if ads and a company paying to influence themselves to be in the answers, I think that will discredit and lose some of the trust of the people using the tools because they feel like they're just being sold to.
Starts to feel like OTA is prioritizing hotels, that give up a higher commission, right? Basically the same dynamic. And, it's not like OTAs have lost trust over that. I think a lot of people don't know what's happening. Consumers don't know what's happening there.
Many people don't realize that the links to the top of Google is an ad. So I think we're aware, but let's say the average consumer isn't even aware that first 3-4 links at Google are ads.
Yeah. Good transition to personalization, and how recommendations, products should be able to continue to be better personalized to each user. And one of the most interesting ideas I've heard is that marketing creative will continue to evolve toward infinite personalized AI-created combinations of images, videos, messaging. And Mark Zuckerberg talked about this in an interview a few months ago. He said they're getting close to allowing advertisers to just say what their business objective and budget is, and Meta will create the ads, figure out the targeting, and maximize results. And we're kind of touching on that in the last part of the conversation. You also just have the huge targeting benefits of these full, detailed conversations happening inside AI platforms, particularly via voice, which is happening more and more. You have the idea that Google, as they announced in May, will be taking more of your context from your calendar and your email into play. I don't know if we want to go all the way into digital ID, but these are all implications for personalization. So anyone want to tackle all that?
I'll just say thanks, Meta. That's just what we needed. I think that the idea that that you're going to be able to get unique. So here, I'll back up a second. Starting with your comment about Meta ads, Perpelic runs advertising for 35, 40 travel brands. And I know that the mentality is we take whatever we're able to do with the platform and try to do it a little bit better than everybody else. So what happens when the same platform makes everybody's ads, does everybody's targeting, and makes everybody's bids? That is achieving beta performance for everybody, right? So how do you get alpha? You do something different. So I think if they give you the option to upload anything manually, the people who really want to drive an outcome are going to be uploading things manually. That's always been the case with advertising. And I have seen my team shift substantially into ad creative being written by AI, specifically the text creative. But that means there's still things that we have deep control over. Data signaling being a significant portion of that. The data you provide ad platforms, you can do better than other people. And I really do think it's likely that creative, even if you're using AI to create your creative, it's less likely that everybody will be doing it on the same platform. That's just an opinion. I have, again, no data to back that, but it just, I think that that's a shiny object more than it is something that advertisers are going to enjoy and adapt, other than those that are not equipped to do anything else.
Okay.
Lots of comments here. Going back into the idea of infinite content. Our entire business is what runs off what we call our content traveler data loop. The more content we have, the more travelers we attract. And content is not blogs, although it could be. Content really is supply. So if you have access to all the world's supply activities and or accommodations and or flights and or packages. That's content. And the more content you get, the more travelers you can attract, organic, paid, social, ChatGPT, pick your platform of attraction. But those travelers then give you data. And in the before times, data used to just inform the content that you need to create or the content that could be created. But now in the world of infinite content, the data creates the content. We have some brands that are out and operational that we describe into it saying, hey, we're looking for brand avatars to represent the brand. And out pops this little anime character for a new Japanese site that's there. And now it's great, this character is kind of cool. Place them into these various ads and do reviews and write in this first person and do assessments of all these Japanese ski resorts. That's infinite content. But now that as soon as you get that content, it attracts more travelers gives you more data, and more content gets created. So I think the idea of infinite content is there. And where I get really excited by it is this whole idea that, in my first job in marketing and technology back in 1997, we were talking about one-to-one marketing, and it's the great promise of one-to-one marketing is coming soon. And Don Pepper's Martha Rogers, for those old enough, and one-to-one marketing at that point was you get to have your name addressed in the email that you get sent, and they use these outsourced email providers. I think we're actually now on the verge of having one-to-one marketing. I think you can now have that personalization that goes down to the identity when that user wants it. It's not marketing if it's helpful. It may be marketing to the group that's trying to position it, but for the user, that's great context. It's very helpful if it's truly, truly personalized to their experience. So I think we're in this mass personalization, mass customization, and infinite content for everyone. I think it's a glorious time. But of course, I'm still a marketer.
Right. And I guess just to piggyback on the concept of infinite content, one of the things I was reading about is about moats. And they say because these LLMs are constantly scraping and looking for the latest and greatest because they want to give people the most relevant answers at the moment. So they say speed is the new moat. So the faster you can get that content that is personalized to that person will be a point of differentiation for your brand.
Mm-hmm. Great. We could keep going on that. I want to make sure we have time, though, to go a little further into the future, talk about agent-to-agent communication. So my, top line question here is just if you each agree with the vision that in the coming years, a large part, maybe even a majority of research, shopping, commerce will be agents representing consumers on one side, agents representing businesses on the other side, and then just what that looks like and what the ripple effects are. Whoever wants to go first.
I don't. Sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
I'll do the double talk this time. So I just wrote an article that was in Hospitality Upgrade in the summer issue, all about this Web3, Web4 in the coming agent-to-agent economy. And I see that it is grounded with blockchain and everyone's going to have their own individual agent, and there'll be shopping, and hotels will have their own agent, and there'll be a point of negotiation, similar to what Delta just announced a couple of days ago, where they are having AI-based pricing, that we're going to be stepping away from parity pricing, and then it's going to be this one-to-one pricing. And in fact, I think people will probably be paying more because everyone has a different price point. I think there's money being left on the table. So I think this new economy will allow hotels to actually get more money out of people by leveraging this technology.
Yeah, personalized offers and upsells should be easier if the technology allows for it, which is another question, maybe outside this discussion. Yeah, Brendan?
Need to unmute myself. So I have a token provocative opinion on this. I don't know why, honestly, we would need a brand agent to communicate with what we have. The existing infrastructure is not a problem, especially with the advent of MCP, making direct connects very easy and non-technically complicated. I would say that, speaking back to what I said earlier about the technical overload required to go scrape 700 websites and get pricing data to make one answer, same technical overload to talk to 700 different agents. right? So I don't understand why we would need to go that route necessarily and have a back and forth conversation when it would be just as easy and use less resources to do the hard part of just scraping 700 websites. Because then you're not using somebody else's technology and querying it. You're just using a read of existing content. So do I think that we're going to have, like, I think I remember when the internet lost its mind when you had a video of two AI LLMs realizing that they're both LLMs and talking to each other and then converting to like a machine language where it was not words. It was like a bunch of beeps, and the world lost its mind. And in my head, I'm like, this is how fax machines work, guys. Come on, calm down. But anyhow, I think it's a really interesting thing. I think it's a very addictive concept of, wow, we're going to have someone working for me and someone working for them talking. But we don't need that. We just need someone working for us. The stuff from them is already out there. So that's my individual opinion. Again, opinions are just that. I have no idea what's going to happen. I just don't necessarily personally see a large argument for having a lot of agent-to-agent communication.
John, this might be where you disagree a little bit because you're building.
Well, yeah, I think there's both. Both things are true. I think we're going to have massive agent-to-agent communications, but I think what's really unique in the travel space is that travel, by definition, is emotive and visual. I think you're going to be looking at a property, a destination, a activity, and you want to dream. Like it's about the emotions you're going to go out and create when you're there. So yes, you may be able to go out and retrieve information back, but you as the consumer, you want to see the pictures of the place. You want to imagine yourself in those places. So I think the agent will be going out and doing some retrieval. It'll be helping you sort through the information, be helping you make some decisions. But you as that consumer, you still want the visual. You still want that experience. It might be able to, we did an experimentation on one of our brands that when you get to the end of the content, one of the prompts is, do you want us to create a podcast for you about this new location that you want to go out to? We always said, well, you also can create a whole fantasy romance novel about your trip to Tuscany. We can create the novel for you on the spot. But it's about how do you create the emotions with that guest. So I think the agent's going to be there as the assistant, more so than as the one who's actually doing the work on your behalf. One of the analogies I used the other day is that I'm not sure who here has a Roomba in their house. When we first got a Roomba, we used to sit there and watch the Roomba. Like, this is exciting. When Manus first launched, we were all sitting there watching Manus do its work. Eventually, you won't watch the Roomba anymore. You won't watch Manus do its work. But I think what you want to see, though, is you want to see the outcome of that thing, which is still the visual experience. It's the clean house. It's the output of code. I was trying to one-shot Grok create a video game. I'm not a video game creator. I'll never publish this video game, but I'm curious to see the outcome. And I think we can't let sight of that. These agents are machines. They're designed to assist the human process, which is I want to discover, I want to learn, I want to see new things. And that's still going to be there. So they're going to be more assistance to the journey rather than replacing the journey.
I've thought about this a lot, and I wonder why I don't see more companies working on this, or the big companies. I guess there are technical limitations and maybe just compute restraints, but why can't the agent be bringing back the visuals too, and just really everything you need, presenting it to you in the way that you would want to see it if you're more of a visual person or you're not, if you want to see pictures, if you want to see videos, if you want to see tours. Is there something that's stopping agents from being able to do that? I assume it's just where it is going in the longer term.
Yeah. And that goes back to my first comment about the experience we see today is not going to be the experience we see in a year from now. Many queries are run on ChatGPT now do return images back. I think about 7 out of 10, 7 out of 11 images do appear to be coming from that website in real time. This goes back to Brennan's retrieval mode as opposed to storage mode. But 4 of those 11 images that I've inserted in my little quick analysis were coming from a cache that the image is no longer on that website. Where's it coming from? I don't know. I ran a query the other day looking to interpret some data, and ChatGPT says we can't yet make this as an interactive chart, but it's coming. That in these future models they are going to be interactive charts. It's going to return multimodal response. That's what Google did. Google was just links. You talk about, is this the end of the 10 blue links? The days of 10 blue links is over, you said in your opening remarks. The days of 10 blue links have been over for 15 years. It's been image search, it's been shopping search, it's been visual, it's been or the death to the business who was the stat provider for your fantasy sports pool. Well, those fantasy sports results have been on Google's results. You never had to click through the website anymore. And I think
Right.
that's where a lot of these models are going to go as well. Is it's visual. It's to give to the user what they want at that moment in time.
And for me, I see it as two different branches. I mean, you've got the dreaming, the inspiration of the leisure travel. I mean, part of the trip is the planning. I mean, that's probably some people find the most satisfaction from that piece. But then you also have the business trip. So the business trip, I just want to be close to where I need to be, have it safe, X, Y, or Z. I don't really care what it looks like if it meets these certain requirements. So I think you're going to see a split. I think that people will trust, like once Apple gets Siri right and Apple Intelligence right, and it knows your schedule. I think if you're going on a business trip, just like book me a trip, I'm going blah blah blah. It'll be proactive, and it'll just say, "Here's what I found for you." And I don't necessarily care where to see the images. Maybe it's a brand that I'm familiar with. I give it a couple of brands. Say, pick one of these brands I'm comfortable with. So that might hurt independence, but I think for the leisure travel where you're taking your family and your kids away and you want to look at all the interesting, fun things you want to do, I think that's the one that's going to have to be very visually heavy.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There's a comment here I see from people in the chat, and apologies for not getting to a lot of these questions. But both Vivian and Cor were talking about the moral and ethical side of personalization in AI. This goes back to your conversation or their thoughts, Mike, on digital identity. I think the traveler is in control of their information. I think they're the ones who get to see and say what they want attached to it. And as we talk about these marketing methods, it's a great place for the traveler and consumer to be because they're in control, or they should be in control. And I think that's it wasn't possible before to do a mass customization, mass marketing, mass personalization before, but now you can put the customer in control and they can be in charge of what they see and when they see what they see for different personas.
Yeah, and love to keep exploring that. We have 7 minutes left, though, technically in the webinar, and I have a couple more questions. So let's try to get through these, and then we'll do audience questions after. Want to make sure you have all of a few minutes. Actually, John, do you want to just take like 1 minute? I don't know if it's possible. Just talk about the agentic network that you're building.
We believe that we're in the future. If you look at Web 1, and not to use the Web 1, Web 2.0 and such, but really the first evolution really was the internet as we know it today. It's when Booking launched, it's when Expedia launched, it's when the large companies came out. 15 years later, you had the mobile social revolution when the launch of the Airbnb, Ubers, the Instagrams, TikTok, which I think both those last two are also travel companies. And I think we're in the start now of this new agentic web and this agentic network, where you will have a series of brands and consumers interacting with this new platform, building on those generations that have come before it. And I think the more agents you get in the mix, the more supply, the more consumers, the network itself grows. So I think you're starting to see all these things coalesce in this single platform built on the strength of the networks before. That's what we're trying to build, is we're make sure that the identity for the traveler is front and center, but it's also the identity of all the supply, identity of all the agents that needs to be described in such a way. We can get into a lot of details a bit further on that, but that's it for the biggest part, is that eventually all travel and all people will be on a single platform, controlled by the users.
Yeah, and I'll give you a shout out if anyone wants to, just read about that vision. You've written about it on travelai.com. I think if you just Google the third voice, it should come up.
Yeah.
Your term for it. So let's move into closing statements. I wanted to try to get to just, your best advice for travel marketers going forward. How should they prepare for the future? Think about their jobs. That one stat I showed was, about fearing job loss, but not having a lot of support in training. And then just take that into, your kind of 5-year vision of where travel marketing is going. 2030 is not that far away. So, what will travel marketing look like then? Anybody could go first.
I can go. So I talk about that in the book, AI Literacy Playbook, where we talk about what is the future state for hotels, hotel teams. And everyone's going to be, the new job is going to be an agent boss. So you're going to have a lot of agents that can kind of do the social, the writing, the newsletters, all this. And the person's job is ultimately going to be managing these series of agents. And work is going to be, you're not going to be a revenue manager anymore or a marketer. You're going to be managing workflows. So I think that shift of how people work is going to evolve and change. And I think a lot of that has to do with people understanding this technology. And it's very, when I say that, and for people that aren't familiar with this, it's scary because it sounds like job loss, but it's continual learning. It is understanding and just getting empowered. And I'm working with organizations that are actually helping them learn, because right now the biggest thing is ignorance and not really understanding what this technology is or isn't. And I think once they understand it and how to evolve their roles, I think that coming into the next few years, people will understand how to do their jobs or their roles.
I've got a couple things. So number one, Mike, at the beginning of this conversation, you said companies are not providing this training. You cited a stat that showed that a significant portion of companies are not providing training around how to upskill and develop in the age of AI. And my response to that is yes, but also there's a piece of me that wants to say in this world, the hackers will win, the intellectual curiosity will win, insatiability and the inability to be satisfied with the status quo will win. There's only so much that a company can do. I think that there is a responsibility to create awareness for a company to their team and employees. I do think that there is also personal ownership in this whole situation. I see a couple of things in where I think there will be a very stark divide between winners and strugglers in this space, simply because I talk to 15, 20 travel companies every week about their travel marketing that are talking to Perpelic about potentially working with us. And the five that I lean on are: number one, front and center, be thinking about and understanding how users purchase things now. Don't think about the strategies first to optimize for that. Just figure out where people are looking, because I think a lot of people are not going to notice how people are looking is changing so quickly. There's a need to very much better understand who our traveler is now, because the search that people are placing when they're using AI to research travel, it's very personal. There's a lot of user context that never was. I mean, it was there in limited extents in Google, but it's going to be very different when two different people from different backgrounds ask about a travel experience. You need to know who that person is that's asking that. And then the last thing is I'm going to shorten it to 3 of the 5 because I want to give time to John. But I think the last thing is be visible across the different stages of travel research. That has not changed: inspiration, planning, booking, experiencing. But I personally think that it's going to be very difficult for those who are not intellectually curious to move into the future of travel marketing.
Yeah.
So I'll finish off of that, and I 100% agree. Experimentation is key. Back in 2000, when Google first launched Google Ads, marketing stopped becoming an art and marketing became math. And that's still true today. Marketing is still about measurable marketing. Are you able to spend $1 to make $1.50? You can get creative on the edges. You can figure out ways to do things, and the best art is both math, or both science and art. But I don't think that's going to change. If you look at the big picture and go back up many layers, travel as an industry is growing 8% year over year. Okay, if travel is growing 8% year over year, there are more consumers who are traveling. As travel becomes more efficient, there's more dollars left to travel more efficiently. If you have more people traveling more efficiently, more people will travel. So then what really is the marketer to do is, how do you stand out above the crowd? How do you get your stuff seen? It comes down to math. The best marketing channel for one company may be different than another company. It all depends on your math. Yeah, some people will find highly effective marketing in having a boutique property that spreads on social and is just so spectacular that it's like, wow, that I have to go here. The math works in that if you invest in brand, it will work for you. Others will find great success in doing SEO optimization and hiring Brennan's firm. I'm proud to say we're a client, so anybody else should be a client as well.
I'll send you a check after this, John.
Yeah, okay. We're negotiating here. But if marketing is math, find the channels that work for you, whatever it happens to be: paid, organic, new methods. constant experimentation is the key.
Fantastic. Appreciate each of your unique perspectives. And we'll keep going a little bit. So top of the hour, I just want to do a quick outro. You all said you're good to stay on, so then we'll get to some audience questions. So I just want to wrap up by making sure everyone knows about part 5 of the New Agents Trend Series on September 17th, which will be about the convergence of generative AI and autonomous agents with digital identity. So that'll be our chance to dive into that. We focused on the role of digital identity and verifying that people and agents are who they say they are, and how digital ID can and will be used for enhancing personalization as well as enabling truly seamless travel. And if there's one year you really want to be at the Phocuswright conference in November, it might be this one. This year the theme is Game On, and we'll be discussing how AI is fundamentally writing the rules for how companies must operate just to stay in the race, let alone win it. And as we covered in the discussion today, seems like if you dare to blink, it could be game over. So come and join us there. You can save a lot of money by registering early, $600 off the ticket price if you register by July 31st. And some of the research, the Phocuswright research I shared today is from our latest report, Chat Plan Book, Gen AI Goes Mainstream. That's available for purchase if you're not a subscriber. And if you are a conference attendee, you can get $100 off the price of the report with the code New Agents. And there's a QR code there you can scan to go right to it, or just go find it on our site. Let's see. I think there were a couple of questions. I saw Brennan, you wanted to answer one from Kim.
There's a
maybe?
lot. I don't know if Kim's still here, but I was writing answers and I realized that I've probably rightfully so been restricted from communicating directly with the audience, whereas some of the other panelists I've seen being able to chat with everybody. Kim asked a question, reporting. Actually, John, what are y'all doing for reporting? And then I'll add anything that I think is additional.
We have a whole lot of reporting, and it's not good enough, is the answer. We have lots of reporting, but the reality is we need to constantly revisit and rebuild the reporting, because what you want is, I want answers to questions at the moment it has. So we're trying to have conversations with our data, as opposed to just doing reports. But yeah, we have cool reports. We do break things out. We do break things out by platforms, but I'm never satisfied,
Yeah.
I guess is the answer.
It's a couple things to add to what John is saying. I think from a very high level, there's a couple things you can track. Number one, you can track just purely the traffic that comes to your site from AI models. They all have a refer. I mean, unless they're attempting to be undetectable, they'll show up as a specific URL, a source, medium, and channel in your Google Analytics for attribution reports. If you have finally figured out how to use GA4, which is an undertaking in and of itself. But that's one piece. You can track visits and traffic. Another thing you can track is more leading indicator of, is the AI model visiting your website? And that's going to be visible through your server access logs. And that'll show you two things. Number one is going to be, are users visiting your site with AI models, asking it to check your website? And number two, are they crawling it to train their model? And number three, there's a lot of new tools that have come on the market that monitor somewhat poorly at this point. It's still a very undeveloped market, but they monitor how frequently you're mentioned for specific terms you check daily, and whether that mention is positive or negative in nature. And those are kind of the three categories of things that we're looking at right now.
Were there any other questions any of you noticed you wanted to address?
I'm curious about both Michael and Brennan's thoughts about MCP. I've seen a few people asking about any thoughts that MCP is a must-have within the next year. Do you think, Michael, that hotels need to basically push their information out through an MCP server that they would be sitting and maintaining, or what's your thoughts there?
Well, I think right now, like as I'm talking to hotels and as they're being sold to by providers, they're saying we have all these API connections. So I think right now the hotels are always a little bit behind. Right now, they're just wanting to make sure that things are accessible via APIs. And once they understand how MCP makes everything a little bit easier, I think that will be important to them. But I think right now they're just trying to get to open APIs.
I think that there's a huge opportunity for someone to build a business where they aggregate hotel data and make it available through an MCP. I think that that's something that's very likely an outcome for the large OTAs, Booking, Expedia, that have all the inventory. That would be the easiest path because, frankly, I think maybe you'll get it from the four big hotel chains, but you're not going to see that come from independent hotels globally. I mean, that would be based on the rate at which the PMS infrastructure has changed. That'll be in maybe 20 to 30 years. That was a very gloomy view, but frankly, I don't think that hotels necessarily will first understand in a lot of cases, second, know how to monetize any of that work, so it won't show up on their priority list.
The related question from Greg here that talked about the shift from SEO to AIO or GEO or pick your other acronym. It's called marketing. How do you optimize for your customers where they're searching? You can be optimizing for search engine optimization. You can optimize for social optimization, but really it's just marketing. The SEO, when I started out in this career, SEO wasn't a thing. It was just how do you get in front of high intent customers? It's no different. It's still just find out where what's the as a Buffett or Munger, one of the guys says you have to fish where the fish are. It's the same thing. You go and find your customers, get in front of them, position yourself in such a way that you have what they want, and that's just optimization. It's marketing.
On MCP, doesn't it seem like, the cloud PMSs, they're going to embrace it? And maybe it goes back to the discussion and what you were saying, Brendan, about how you don't see the need, I think, but the way I think a lot of people are thinking about it is have agents talking to each other through the A2A protocol. The agent on the supplier side then is using MCP to go into the supplier systems, return the information needed. That goes back through the A2A protocol to the consumer's agent. And then we probably could go a little deeper on, is there a new layer there?
I think it's
that meta search, is that OTAs or something new that facilitates all that?
I mean, it practically sits at the channel manager layer, in my opinion. I think that.
All right, not the PMS. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it could sit at the PMS. It could happen anywhere, frankly, anywhere that accepts a booking.
It could be both.
But distribution.
Yeah. Right. You want all the questions that a traveler has about the property to be able to be answered. So you have to go into every system, really.
Yeah.
Sound right, Michael?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Are we going to get there?
Yeah. I think, I think ChatGPT 5, when it comes out in a week or two or whenever that comes out, I think it's going to, it's going to aggregate a lot of sort of the different models into one way of thinking, but also I think it's going to probably, I imagine, I leap forward to a lot of the things that we don't know. It's going to incorporate some new features. So I think the acceleration pace is going to pick up even more. So I imagine that we will get there because I think they see an opportunity to make money. If there's an opportunity to make money and there's an opportunity to get market share for their solution, I think that they would probably get there faster than we expect.
There's another question here. I'm playing the role of panelist here and moderator here, Mike. The idea of managing a bunch of agents is several years away or a very small amount of roles companies. There's so much legacy in place that will need to get addressed first. Michael, your first book really talks about the digital employee and the future agent. We have several agents that work for us. We have a branding agent, a domain lookup agent, a SEO link infusion agent. We have all these agents that basically swarm attack a project. But you've written a fair bit about how this role of the future employee and the future agent. Do you think that managing agents is several years away, or is it much sooner than that?
I think it's going to be coming next year. I think these agents are soon to become ubiquitous. I mean, and Project Mariner, Operator, web use. Once they kind of get the web use feature down, if they can, or whether it's just going to be APIs. But I think that you will see these digital employees doing probably initially just tasks, because you want to focus on just having them do different tasks. And you have a person who used to be that task now will be responsible for a number of these agents that each do a task and just optimizing that. So the job, I think, of the future or coming soon is these agents that focus on tasks. That person's job is just to constantly optimize and check it. They'll be the human in the loop. And so I think, it's not going to be gone. It's not we're going to switch over 100% to this agent boss mindset, but I think it'll be starting next year. I think it's coming very soon.
Probably good to define what an agent is, because you have robotic process automation that's been around for a long time. You have kind of algorithmic automation. So I would say it's kind of the ability to make decisions. And I'm having some success, as I was telling you guys, just using the Zapier platform. I recommend everybody check it out because you have integrations into 7,000 different pieces of software that you can connect together and build these automations where the agent really does think about things and make a decision. So it is work. I'm having success automating that really couldn't be automated previously, couldn't be done with rule-based automation. But if you give it enough information and context to make, a lot of different types of decisions, it's doing a good job. So I feel like it's pretty much here. I think consumer agents, we're halfway there with deep research, and then even Google, ChatGPT launching shopping, like the ability for the agent to complete a transaction, do something for you, take an action, make a phone call. Doesn't all seem that far away. Sorry.
Yeah, and I think once people get comfortable using their phone to say, book me a dinner reservation, book me a movie ticket. And once they see that it's successful, they'll start with little things like that. And then it'll become much more ubiquitous and it'll get more complex. So I think from a consumer perspective.
Just like the internet, people are hesitant at first until it starts working.
I remember my very first pitch of a startup back in 97. I was talking to a guy about this new thing called e-commerce and this e-business that's coming up. And he says, you think people actually buy things online? I said, yeah, I do. I think people would be buying things online. He says, people won't trust it, as he hands his credit card to the server and take it to the back room and do stuff with it and brings it back to them. And I said, well, how's that secure? And this is not. But that was 97. And so people have taken a long time to understand that you can actually buy things online securely. Maybe the same thing for agents, but it will probably happen much sooner than we think.
The question is just, I don't know, the average consumer, how long is it going to take them to really be comfortable with talking to an agent for a lot of different things? And that could be a very long time. And, 40% of travel is still offline. So it's not like everything goes. It's just what does the ratio kind of shake out to and how fast is the growth? Were you going to say something, Brennan?
No, I actually don't remember what it was, so it's unimportant too. It was probably not important in the first place, so that's all settled.
It probably was. Let me know if you think of it.
I will. I think we're good.
I'm looking for other questions. I think we pretty much covered everything else that's been asked. I see Danny asked 5 questions in the Q&A panel. I think we touched on just about everything. Personalized travel experiences. What new revenue streams can be created by leveraging AI? Kind of, not super related to marketing specifically.
I'll touch on that one for a little bit from revenue streams. I think a large part to think about it is that it's turning compute into revenue. If it costs you so we're building what we call a traveler action model. That traveler action model has a cost. It has a whole lot of compute to go and build this little travel profile that's personalized to that user. But we're only building it because we think we can spend 1.5 cents and make 5 cents of value from it. And so I think for all of these models, you're looking at how do you take compute, digitize it, turn it into ones and zeros, and create greater value on the other side. So I think that there's lots of models that will evolve around taking compute, processing it, making sense of it, going back to the reporting conversation we had, Brendan, if you can actually get the intelligence out of that compute and then turn that into greater value on the other side. There's new models that are emerging there.
Yeah, some great insights. I appreciate it from everyone today. Yeah, thank you for joining. I think we're good on the questions. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing what you're doing, your perspective. Thanks to all the audience who stuck with us, especially to the end. Hope this was insightful and hope to see you on the next webinar on September 17th. Thanks,
Mike, for hosting this. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.